Friday, January 10th. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Maya Trabulsi. A San Diego college student was among the 176 people killed in the downed Ukrainian airliner on Wednesday. Officials at Alliant University say Sarah Hatzadat was visiting family in Iran and preparing to return to San Diego when the airliner was hit by missiles reportedly fired by Iran. Saadat was seeking a doctoral degree in clinical psychology at the Scripps Ranch campus. Camilla Burnell has more on the tensions with Iran.
In the back and forth between the U.S. and Iran, the U.S. is striking back, this time with economic sanctions.
We will continue to apply economic sanctions until Iran stops its terrorist activities and commit that it will never have nuclear weapons.
The sanctions come as a result of the Iranian attack on U.S. and allied troops in Iraq in retaliation for a U.S. strike that killed Qasem Soleimani. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo continues to defend the rationale behind the attack that killed the Iranian general.
We had specific information on an imminent threat, and those threat stream included attacks on U.S. embassies. Period. Full stop.
But some members of Congress are still questioning whether the attack was truly imminent. Meanwhile, Iranians say sanctions will not bring them to the table.
Either you want to have a dialogue or either you want to apply sanctions.
And to add to the escalating tensions, new details on the plane crash in Iran that killed 176 people aboard a Ukrainian plane.
We do believe that it's likely that that plane was shot down by an Iranian missile. When we get the results of that investigation, I am confident we and the world will take appropriate actions in response.
Iran denies the claim and says they're inviting international partners, including the U.S., to investigate. Camila Bernal, KPBS News.
Coming up, a veteran's perspective on the military tensions with Iran. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh talked with a diverse group of local veterans who served in the Middle East. We'll have some of that discussion later in the show. The Trump administration says it's reached a milestone with its new border wall. Today in Yuma, the Department of Homeland Security announced 100 miles have been built.
One thing I want to emphasize is that every inch of the 100 miles that we have constructed is new border wall system. It's not so-called replacement wall as some of our critics has claimed. It is new wall.
Aside from the construction, it's also been a week of legal victories for the Trump administration. On Wednesday, a federal appeals court lifted a lower court order. The move allows more than $3 billion in military dollars to be diverted to the project. After some 40 years, the South Bay is getting its first new hospital. A ribbon-cutting ceremony was held today to show off Sharp Chula Vista's new $244 million hospital tower. The nearly 200,000 square foot tower will add 106 private patient rooms and 6 large operating rooms, even a rooftop cafe. It also means plenty of new jobs. It will open to the public on Tuesday. Local Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez has put forth a new bill raising eyebrows. It seeks to ban what many feel is an archaic and demeaning practice called virginity testing. If performed by a doctor, the procedure is currently allowed. More now from reporter Adrienne Moore.
There's something very 1890s and a little outdated about trying to check a woman's chastity.
Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez wants a newly introduced bill to pave the way for the rest of the nation by putting a stop to virginity testing.
It's a procedure where a doctor would go in and check if a woman's hymen was still intact.
The testing is documented in at least 20 countries, according to the World Health Organization, which along with the United Nations has called for a global end to the practice.
This is not a medical procedure most doctors believe has any value, and so we want to ban it.
Under the California proposal, any doctor who performs or supervises these exams would face punishment with the medical board. Gonzalez says the measure was prompted by the nationwide controversy surrounding rapper T.I., who said he had virginity tests performed on his teenage daughter every year.
The procedure the doctor is doing, if it was anybody but a doctor, you'd go to jail.
With the bill now on a long journey through committees, the hope is to have it on Governor Newsom's desk by the end of the year.
And it's time that we show young girls and women the respect that they deserve, and that's not to test them for their chastity.
And that was reporter Adrienne Moore. A bill similar to this one was proposed last month in New York and already has the support of the governor's office. Local hospitals remain on high alert as flu activity spikes across the county. And as KPBS health reporter Taryn Mento shows us, visitation is being limited to prevent spreading the illness.
Visitors to UC San Diego Medical Facility in Hillcrest are greeted with a warning. Those with flu symptoms must alert staff, and kids under 12 aren't allowed in at all. UCSD's Dr. Francesca Toriani says it's difficult to stop someone from visiting a loved one, but the goal is to keep vulnerable patients safe.
We do that because we know that small children are less able to control their cough and sneezes, and if they visit, they may be incubating influenza if there's a lot of influenza in the county.
11 San Diegans have died from the flu this season, and all had underlying medical conditions. Toriani says some exceptions to the visiting policy can be made, but it has been in place since flu activity picked up right before the holidays. And this week, it's continuing to increase.
In the past week alone, we have seen a significant increase in numbers, and also followed by a third of these patients needing to be admitted to the hospital. So suggesting that there is more severe disease around.
Also this week, the county triggered enhanced flu surveillance and communication to stay ahead of any surge in patients. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
After hours of debate and 2 rounds of voting, SANDAG officials today approved a controversial $90 million bike lane project. It calls for the creation of 16 miles of bike lanes running through the North Park and Mid-City neighborhoods. The most controversial aspect is the estimated $5.5 million cost per mile. Additionally, the 30th Street project alone will eliminate more than 350 parking spots. Critics say that will severely hurt business in that area. Proponents say the lanes will increase safety and reduce emissions due to increased bike ridership. 2019 ended with another strong month for businesses and workers. The Department of Labor says 145,000 jobs were added to the economy last month. The unemployment rate is holding steady at 3.5%. Now let's get more on this and some of the week's other big stories with the Friday Business Report. We're here with SDSU marketing lecturer and co-founder of Bottom Line Marketing, Miro Kopik. Hi, Miro.
Hi, Maya.
Busy out there. A lot of news between Iran and impeachment, especially this week, but it might be delaying another big item that we've been following as well. Is there a delay in approving USMCA?
Well, the House passed it by a wide margin before the end of the year, 385 to 41. It's in the Senate. The Senate Finance Committee passed it out of committee, 25 to 3. So pretty overwhelming. But surprisingly, they referred it to 6 other committees for further discussion, even though the committees can't even make changes to the agreement. So if they decide just to pass it through, they can actually vote on it next week. If the articles of impeachment come in, it'll be postponed until the impeachment hearing is over. But overall, what it's going to do, it's going to help boost the economy a little bit. They're expected about 0.4% over the next 5 or 6 years, and it's going to reduce the temperature on the trade war. And this is important because, you know, the economic predictions this year are a little bit softer. So today, the labor news of the unemployment rate holding at 3.5%, even though the number of jobs created was a little bit lower. You know, leaves room for pause, but the markets were up. And at the end of the day, this really is an important step in making sure that businesses have certainty for 2020 and beyond.
And Lime Scooters, which was the first e-scooter to launch in San Diego back in 2018, they are pulling their scooters out of San Diego. Why did they leave, first of all, and could other companies be following suit?
You know, actually, 2 other companies already left back in September. Uber's Jump and a company called Skip left. You know, you got to think San Diego's an amazing place for a scooter company. Amazing weather, lots of tourists, areas that are flat, you know, beach areas, and initially a municipal government that was very scooter friendly, with a lot of accidents along the boardwalks of the beaches, and these scooters just appearing on lawns of residences all over the city. The city clamped down. All of a sudden, ridership fell for the last 6 months by 75% ever since the laws were enacted. Good for consumers in a way. It adds more order, but when you drop 75%, there's not enough business to go around. And they said, you know, they're leaving the door open. They felt a little bit cheated because not only did when their scooters got impounded, they got fines, and they felt the city wasn't very transparent. So they said they'll come back when the environment settles down. But there's at least 3 more scooter companies that are still in town, and 1 e-bike company, and that should be plenty for the level of rentals that are happening right now.
And then big news for SDSU fans, a brand new TV deal for Mountain West Conference. How can this benefit the school?
You know, in a big way. The bottom line, it's money. This deal moves the television rights contract from ESPN to CBS and Fox. They're going to carry roughly the same number of games. In fact, they have the option to carry more games, both for football and basketball. But the big deal is you go from getting basically a payout of about $1 million per school in the conference every year to more than 3 times. What was interesting about this agreement is that it wasn't a really long-term agreement. A lot of these agreements are 10 years. This was only a 6-year agreement. It starts this fall and it will continue through the 2025 and 26 season. Because the Mountain West was smart. They said, you know, the media environment is going to be radically different. The distribution is going to be different, so cable viewership is going to decline. What's going to replace it? Technology is going to be different. It's going to give the school, the conference, a lot more flexibility in renegotiating, especially if the schools are better in their respective sport. So it's good news for San Diego State.
Great. Thank you so much, Miro Kopik from SDSU and Bottom Line Marketing. Thanks.
Thanks.
And it's a wrap for the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. Much of the new tech on display focused on our daily routines. From your morning coffee to fitness, Karen Kafa shows us some highlights.
For most of us, morning begins when coffee is poured. Thank you very much. And for those very specific about where that coffee comes from, this app from IBM uses blockchain to trace the beans from farmer to barista. For your morning run, ASIC showing a prototype of a smart shoe with built-in sensors to deliver real-time feedback, slated to debut later this year. After that workout, breakfast. Impossible Foods had CES goers lining up for a taste of its plant-based pork, which debuted at the show.
As we look at the global community, pork is the most ubiquitous meat in the world.
Peeking ahead to dinner tonight, leave it to Julia. Cooking Pal's smart countertop unit finds recipes, orders groceries, cooks up ingredients, and cleans itself. Speaking of cleaning up, Kohler's Moxie showerhead has Amazon's Alexa built in, plus a Bluetooth speaker for morning podcasts or shower sing-alongs.
At 7-hour charge, you're going to run out of hot water before you'll run out of battery power.
Their Numi smart toilet is completely hands-free with heated seats and mood lighting. And if you find yourself short-handed,
I've been telling you that robots do just about everything, and now here come my rolls.
Charmin's robot was designed to deliver with little droids controlled by your smartphone, which you may also use to hail this flying taxi by Hyundai as an Uber for your future morning commute. In Las Vegas, I'm Karen Kafa.
From healthcare to prescription drugs to fire safety, Governor Gavin Newsom unveiled his budget plan for the new year. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman begins our coverage with a look at what's being done to solve a crucial local concern when it comes to power and wildfire safety.
This year's budget includes $814.4 million, both picking up from last year and new money. In addition to that is $200 million in the cap and trade. So again, north of $1 billion for emergency preparedness and wildfires.
Governor Newsom is also proposing hiring more than 500 firefighters over the next 5 years. He also expressed the need to stop power safety shutoffs from continuing to happen.
When there's a high risk for wildfires, areas like Julian often have their power shut off. That's because they have traditional above-ground power lines, but SDG&E crews are working to move those lines underground so that areas like Julian aren't left in the dark.
Friday, SDG&E crews were working along Cape Horn Avenue to move power lines underground. Main Street in Julian already has underground lines. Now they're working on a stretch that will benefit the Julian Post Office, the Cal Fire Station, County Library, and Julian Union High School, among others.
It's good because before it was just the businesses along Main Street, and the post office and the high schools were not. So it's really, especially for the high school and the elementary school, it really throws off the kids' schedule, and they have to make up for it somehow because, you know, the state has necessities and they have guidelines that the students have to follow. So I'm glad that they're doing it.
During high winds, above-ground power lines are vulnerable and can start fires. Underground lines are more protected, and power shouldn't be shut off during high-risk fire periods. Others we talked to also welcome the improvements.
It kind of helps everybody, and if it means not having fires, then that's fine, because we've gone through a lot of fires around here.
We're out here in a rural area, and it's a good thing, you know, the gas and electric is, you know, stepping up to, you know, do things like that.
While putting power lines underground helps reduce the risk for wildfires, it is expensive. SDG&E says it costs around $3.4 million per mile.
The costs have got to be astronomical. I am not a technician, but I think in the long run it's going to be safer and easier for them, SDG&E, to manage the problem.
SDG&E is currently in phase 1 of the project, which is hoping to wrap up by the time school starts. Then crews will continue laying underground lines along the 78. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Governor Newsom's budget plan also includes health care for 27,000 older immigrants in the state illegally. They would have to be Medicaid eligible to get the money under his proposed budget that has a $5.6 billion surplus and includes $21 billion in reserves. The governor is also looking to make our state the first to make its own prescription drugs. Newsom says he is, quote, trying to take the power out of the hands of greedy pharmaceutical companies. The plan would call for California to contract with generic drug companies on behalf of its nearly 40 million residents and create a single market for drug pricing in our state. Critics say the plan won't work and would only increase prices. The impeachment process involving President Trump could pick back up as soon as next week. The House of Representatives passed impeachment articles last month, but have yet to move them to the Senate. That's because Republicans have yet to say how a trial would proceed and what, if any, new evidence will be allowed. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi now says she'll hand the case off next week. The House declared President Trump abused his power and obstructed Congress when he pressured the president of Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden's family.
We look at why Duncan Hunter's congressional seat will stay vacant for a year. Plus, the dilemma facing the Republican Party in San Diego as California turns increasingly blue. And Iraq war vets talk about the current conflict. Join us for the KPBS Roundtable tonight at 8:30.
Plenty of sunshine for tomorrow's Padres Fan Fest or anything else you have planned this weekend. Daji Aswad has our forecast.
No major issues for Southern California for the next several days. Much of our moisture is out to the northwest, and that will bring in some rain further to the north across the state, but here at home remaining fairly dry. In fact, tonight mainly clear and feeling cool out there, dropping down to 46 degrees. As we take you across the region, 37 in Oceanside and cooling down to 39 in Borrego Springs. Overnight low at 29 in Mount Laguna with the lack of precipitation. Moving into that futurecast, this also shows you that we are not looking at any chances for wet weather through tonight or even as we head into Saturday. There will be some cloud cover just off the coast. What we will start to see change up here is our winds, as we have a stronger westerly flow bringing some gusts into the mountains and deserts. Outside of that, high pressure is out to the Four Corners. Overall, a cooler pattern and mainly dry Saturday for much of the southwest. We will be topping off at 64 here in San Diego, mid-60s as well in Oceanside, and 49 in Mount Laguna, high of 68 in Borrego Springs with clouds passing through. Your early week forecast, moisture will still be rolling through the northwest with a series of storms. We remain on the dry side to start here for San Diego County. Out towards the east, well, still going to be some wet weather to contend with. And do want to mention, if you do have any family in the South Central or you just want to keep an eye on the weather for travel, there are some pretty dangerous storms that will be rolling through tonight. So definitely want to stay alert there. But here at home, we're in a tranquil pattern. Temperatures remaining in the mid-60s through your Wednesday. A bit more cloud cover coming back into the forecast for the middle of the week. Perhaps even the chance for some showers for the middle of the week. Going to be a bit spotty. Wouldn't put it my best dollar on it at this point in time. As we head into the inland areas, temperatures slightly cooling down for Tuesday with your highs in the lower 60s. Overnight low Tuesday night at 39 degrees. Mountain areas in the upper 40s for the next several days. Not much change here. Windy weather picking up Tuesday and then cool for Wednesday. Highs in the upper 60s out to the deserts and really no issues. Don't really need to pull out the umbrella, just the sunglasses. Reporting for KBBS News, I'm your meteorologist, Dajia Swad. Back to you.
Japan is hosting this year's Summer Olympics, and there will be tighter rules on how athletes express themselves. The International Olympic Committee is banning any form of political protest, and that includes hand gestures and kneeling. There will also be a ban on displaying signs or armbands that carry a political message. Discipline will be handled on a case-by-case basis. We've had a lot of reporting this week on U.S. tensions with Iran, and now we're getting the perspective of those who have served in the Middle East. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh led our discussion.
We wanted to talk to some local vets about what they're thinking about the news and the headlines. So we have with us Gianna Fimbras, she is a Gulf War veteran. She refueled tanks and Bradleys in Kuwait, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. She now works as a medical support assistant at the VA in San Diego. Then we have Fadi Mati, who is an Iraqi national. He was a translator for several years, then came to America, then went back to Iraq as a contractor with the Department of Defense, also doing translating in 2008. And now he's a real estate agent here in San Diego. We have Steve Padilla. He's with Headstrong, which provides mental health care for vets. He's retired from the U.S. Army. He served as a combat engineer in Iraq in 2009, searching for roadside bombs. And then we have at the end here Eric Gopel. He's the leader of Veterans for Cannabis and also Battle Brothers. He served 2 tours in Iraq as in intelligence support for Army Special Forces. He was stationed in Al-Assad Air Base, which was one of the hit by rocket attacks in the last week. And also in 2008 and 2009, he was in Telefar in northern Iraq. What goes through your mind? Do you watch a lot of TV when Iraq is in the headlines the way it has been?
Not too much.
Why is that?
Maybe because been there, done that, seen that, really don't want to anymore.
Okay.
Kind of a thing. I mean, I never asked myself that. You know, I just don't want to see it anymore.
So, Fadi, you're an Iraqi national yourself, right? So, you grew up in Iraq, and then you later went to and you worked for the Americans. What goes to your head when you see your country in this kind of turmoil?
It's really unfortunate, actually. You would hope that the things would get better or should have gotten better after the fall of Saddam's regime, and things have only been going down since then. First it was Al-Qaeda, then it was ISIS, now it's the Shiite militias, and it just keeps escalating and escalating, and we're hoping that it would get better one day.
I look on social media, and I follow a lot of vet Twitter and active duty Twitter. And after the president initiated this drone strike that killed the general, I see pictures of B-52 bombers and aircraft carriers saying that you don't understand the full might and power of the U.S. military. You know, we're ready to come in anytime. Are we really that committed to doing this all over again after we've been in Iraq and Afghanistan so long? Eric?
I mean, the defense budget is $740 billion just in the last budget. You know, when you include VA costs and unfunded liabilities, I mean, you're talking over $1 trillion a year that we're spending on what, right? And not only what is the taxpayer getting out of this? You know, are we more secure? Are our allies more secure? Are we more prosperous? You know, I don't think the answer to those questions are a resounding yes.
Do you feel that forgotten? Like people just have checked out? They're not really paying attention?
If we were all really paying attention, we'd be listening to a lot of veterans and, yeah, we're ready to fight, but
we're kind of over it. It's 16, 18 years, you know, people, men's sons are fighting the battle they fought. When is enough enough? You know, how much longer can we sustain this? And being forgotten here in San Diego, I don't feel that at all. I will be very honest. It's very, very recognizable that San Diego loves their service members and their active duty and does do their very best and takes care of most of them. That's why San Diego is considered the beacon for care for veterans. And I do want to make that note. So here, I don't feel we're forgotten, but nationally, I think there's certain areas that we're not being paid attention to because the war is much more flashy than the veteran either ending his life, asking for help, or being homeless.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, U.S. troops' future in Iraq in doubt after the latest conflict with Iran. That's coming up at 7 right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
And finally tonight, the death of a rock and roll Hall of Famer. Rush drummer Neil Peart passed away in Santa Monica. His family announced the news today and says he was battling brain cancer. Peart was 67 years old, and he leaves behind his wife and his daughter. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. We leave you with music from Live at the Belly Up. It airs tonight at 11 right here on KPBS. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy your weekend.